The coffee dripped down Lillian's face, warm and humiliating, trailing from her forehead to her chin like bitter tears. "Oops," the blonde girl said, not bothering to hide her smirk. "Didn't see you there. Maybe if you weren't so invisible." The entire campus coffee shop went silent. 30 pairs of eyes watched. 30 phones stayed in pockets, because who would record this? Who would care about a 24-year-old single college mom getting publicly embarrassed at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday? Lillian's hands trembled. Not from anger. From exhaustion. From the weight of 2 jobs, 1 toddler, 4 classes, and exactly 3 hours of sleep. "Don't react. Don't give them the satisfaction," she said to herself as she reached for a napkin. But before her fingers touched the dispenser, a hand intercepted hers. A man's hand, elegant, long fingers, a vintage Patek Philippe watch on the wrist. "You missed a spot," he said. Lillian looked up. And the world stopped. He was Korean. Breathtakingly handsome. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that held a storm of recognition, and lips curved into an expression she couldn't quite name. He wasn't looking at her like she was invisible. He was looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for 3 years. "It's you," he whispered. Lillian blinked coffee from her eyelashes. "Excuse me." "Lillian Marie Hayes," he said, and hearing her full name from a stranger's lips sent ice down her spine. Born November 3rd, daughter of Patricia Hayes, former resident of Chicago's South Side. Mother to a 2-year-old son named Miles. Her blood ran cold. "I've been looking for you," he continued, "for a very, very long time. Before we dive into the story, if you're new here, welcome to our channel. If you love forbidden romance, powerful women, and plot twists you'll never see coming, hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now let's get into the story. 3 years earlier. Lillian didn't believe in miracles. Not when her mother worked 3 jobs and still couldn't afford her insulin. Not when her high school counselor told her she was reaching by applying to Northwestern. Not when she got accepted anyway with a full scholarship and thought, maybe, just maybe life was finally turning around. She was 21 years old, a junior studying biomedical engineering, and she had approximately $147 in her bank account when she met him for the first time. Not Owen Kim. No, Owen would come later. Owen would be the resurrection. This man was the destruction. His name was Derek Whitmore III. Old money. Blue blood. Future congressman if his father had anything to say about it. He drove a Porsche Cayenne, had a trust fund that could feed small nations, and he noticed her one rainy October night in the campus library. "You're the one who destroyed the curve in organic chemistry," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Lillian didn't look up from her textbook. Destroyed implies malice. "I just studied. While the rest of us were dying. Then study harder." He laughed. Rich boy laugh. All teeth and confidence. She should have heard the warning bells. Should have noticed how his eyes traveled her body like an appraisal. Should have remembered everything her mother taught her about men who looked at black women like exotic mysteries to be conquered. But she was tired. She was lonely. And when someone who looked like that kept showing up at the library, at her favorite coffee shop, at the campus tutoring center where she worked, it felt like persistence. It felt like being seen. The affair lasted 4 months. "You're different," Derek would whisper against her neck. "Not like the others." The others. Lillian learned later what that meant. The debutantes. The socialites. The women his family actually approved of. When she found out she was pregnant, Derek's mask didn't slip, it shattered. Get rid of it. They were in his off-campus apartment. The one with a view of the Chicago skyline. The one where he'd fed her strawberries and champagne and promises that felt real in the dark. "What?" Lillian's hand went to her stomach instinctively. "I'll pay for the procedure. Whatever clinic you want. I'll even drive you." He was already reaching for his wallet, like she was a parking meter that needed feeding. "But this thing cannot exist. This thing is a baby. It's a complication." His blue eyes, the ones she'd once thought were beautiful, turned glacial. "My family has plans for me. A political dynasty to build. And nowhere in that plan is a..." He paused, searching for the right word. "Say it, Lillian dared him, her voice shaking. Finish that sentence. Derek's jaw tightened. A child I didn't authorize with a woman who doesn't fit the profile. Doesn't fit the profile. Translation: wrong skin. Wrong tax bracket. Wrong everything. You're disgusting, Lillian whispered. I'm realistic. He shrugged. You should be too. What exactly do you think you can offer a child? You're on scholarship, which means you're poor. Your mother's sick, which means medical debt. You work 2 jobs already and you're barely surviving. Adding a baby to this equation isn't brave, Lillian. It's selfish. She left his apartment with her dignity in splinters. The next day, she discovered Derek had filed a report with Student Services claiming she'd been stalking him, harassing him, making false accusations of a relationship that never happened. Her scholarship review board called her in. Her campus job let her go. Her carefully constructed life collapsed like a house built on quicksand. Lillian dropped out 3 months before her due date. She had no money, no support system, a sick mother who could barely care for herself, and a growing belly that reminded her daily of the worst mistake she'd ever made. But on May 15th, when Miles Elijah Hayes entered the world screaming, Lillian made a promise. I will survive this. I will rise. And one day, everyone who doubted me will choke on their regret. Owen Kim had a problem. Several, actually. Running a $2.3 billion pharmaceutical company at 29 was complicated enough. Add in board members who questioned his every decision because of his age, shareholders demanding quarterly growth like it could be manufactured on command, and a grandmother who called weekly to remind him that his unmarried status was a family embarrassment. But his real problem? Her name was unknown. She was unknown. 3 years ago, Owen had been in Chicago for a medical technology conference. One of those insufferable events where everyone networked aggressively and nobody actually cared about innovation, just profit margins. He'd stepped outside to escape the champagne-scented hypocrisy. And he'd seen her. She was standing at a bus stop in the rain. No umbrella. Cheap jacket soaked through. One hand clutching textbooks to her chest, the other wrapped around her very pregnant belly. Owen didn't believe in fate. Didn't believe in love at first sight. Didn't believe in any of the romantic nonsense his grandmother peddled whenever she showed him pictures of nice Korean girls from good families. But watching that woman, watching her lift her chin against the downpour, watching her refuse to cower even as the world pelted her with cold water, something shifted. She was beautiful. Not in the polished, cultivated way he was accustomed to. Beautiful like a storm. Beautiful like survival. He'd approached with his umbrella. Please, he said, extending it. Take it. She looked at him with eyes that held depths he couldn't fathom. Brown with gold flecks. Tired but fierce. I don't take things from strangers. Then consider it borrowed. Return it when you're somewhere dry. A small smile curved her lips, reluctant, almost surprised. Like she'd forgotten what kindness looked like. You're serious. Extremely. She took the umbrella. Their fingers brushed. And Owen Kim, who had been emotionally vacant since childhood, felt his heart jolt like a defibrillator had struck his chest. Thank you, she whispered. The bus came before he could ask her name. She boarded. The doors closed. And she was gone. Owen spent the next 3 years searching. It became an obsession, though he refused to call it that. He called it unfinished business. A loose end. He'd hired private investigators, analyzed traffic cameras, cross-referenced student records from nearby universities. Nothing. It was like she'd vanished into thin air. Or, his logical brain reminded him, she was just a random pregnant woman at a bus stop, and you've constructed an entire fantasy around a 30-second interaction because you're emotionally stunted and desperate for connection. Owen told his logical brain to shut up. Then, 3 weeks ago, his lead investigator finally broke through. Her name is Lilian Hayes. She dropped out of Northwestern in 2021. She has a son 2 years old now. She's back in school, actually. Re-enrolled at the University of Illinois Chicago. Engineering program. Owen stared at the file. At the surveillance photo that captured her crossing campus, long dark hair flowing behind her, textbooks clutched to her chest exactly like before. She's 24, the investigator continued. Single mother. Works 2 jobs, waitressing at a diner off campus and tutoring math on weekends. She lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in a, let's say, modest neighborhood. Give me everything. Sir, with respect, this is bordering on everything. The investigator handed over a folder thick enough to be a novel. Owen read it cover to cover. Twice. He learned about her grades, flawless. Her work ethic, inhuman. Her son Miles, adorable, based on social media photos she rarely posted. Her mother Patricia, deceased 6 months ago from diabetic complications. He learned about Derek Whitmore III. And Owen Kim, who prided himself on controlled emotions and measured responses, wanted to destroy something. The Whitmores were old money. Political connections. Untouchable. Owen smiled. We'll see about that. But first, he needed to meet her. Properly. Without the rain. Without the bus pulling her away. He enrolled in the executive education program at UIC. You're doing what? His best friend and CFO, Daniel Park, stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Auditing classes. Philanthropy purposes. The company supports higher education. You hate academia. You called your MBA program organized suffering. I've evolved. You're stalking someone. I'm reconnecting with someone. Daniel rubbed his temples. Owen, you are the CEO of Kim Pharmaceuticals. You cannot just lurk around a college campus because you fell in love with a woman at a bus stop 3 years ago. Watch me. The morning Owen finally found her, Lillian was running on fumes. Miles had been up all night with a fever. Nothing serious, just a toddler cold, but his cries had kept her awake until 4 a.m. Her morning shift at the diner started at 5. Her first class was at 8. Somewhere in between, she needed to shower, dress, pump enough breast milk to leave with her neighbor Mrs. Patterson, who watched Miles for a criminally low fee because she was an angel disguised as a 60-year-old grandmother, and consume enough caffeine to function. She'd managed everything except the coffee. The campus coffee shop was her last hope. Large Americano, she told the barista. For shots. I need to taste my heartbeat. The barista, a sweet freshman named Jenny, laughed. Rough night. Rough life. The coffee was $4.75. Lillian winced as she paid. That was 2 loads of laundry. 3 bananas. Half a gallon of milk. But I need this. Just today. She found a corner table, intending to review her notes for her 9 a.m. pharmaceutical chemistry exam. The irony wasn't lost on her, studying medications she'd never be able to afford. 10 minutes into her review, the shadow fell. Oh my God, is that Lillian? The voice was familiar. Nauseatingly so. Lillian looked up. Madison Whitmore. Derek's younger sister. Junior year at UIC now, apparently. Blonde, Botoxed, and dripping with inherited wealth. It is you. Madison approached with 2 clones flanking her, a brunette and a redhead, both carrying iced lattes that cost more than Lillian's textbook rental. Wow. I thought you died or something after the whole situation. I'm alive. Thanks for the concern. No, totally, wow. Madison's eyes traveled down Lillian's outfit, thrift store jeans, a sweater that had seen better decades, sneakers held together by sheer willpower. You look different. Poor. The word you're looking for is poor. Did you keep it? Madison asked, tilting her head with faux innocence. The baby, I mean. Derek mentioned you were being difficult about, you know. Lillian's jaw tightened. I have a son. His name is Miles. Cute. Does he look like Derek? He looks like me. Madison's smile sharpened. Well, that's probably for the best. Derek's engaged now, did you hear? To Clarissa Vanderbilt. They're perfect together. Same circles, same values, same standards. The clones giggled. Lillian gathered her notes. I need to go. Wait. Madison's hand shot out, hovering near Lillian's coffee cup. Before you run off, I just want you to know there's no hard feelings. About the stalking thing. Derek understood you were probably just confused. Overwhelmed. Sometimes people from certain backgrounds don't understand how things work with families like ours. I didn't stalk your brother. Sure, sure. Madison's fingers curled around the coffee cup. But maybe, don't show up at his wedding? That would be awkward. I have zero interest in. Madison's hand slipped. Coffee everywhere. On Lillian's face. Her notes. Her only clean sweater. Oops, Madison said. Didn't see you there. Maybe if you weren't so invisible. The coffee shop froze. Lillian felt 30 years of generational trauma pressing against her skull. The urge to scream. To flip the table. To wrap her hands around Madison's spray-tanned throat and squeeze. But she had a son at home. A future to protect. A diploma that was 2 years away from changing her entire life. Don't react. Don't give them the satisfaction. She reached for a napkin. And a hand intercepted hers. The man was tall. Over 6 feet. Broad shoulders beneath a cashmere coat. His dark hair was swept back from a face that belonged on magazine covers, sharp cheekbones, full lips, and eyes so intensely dark they seemed to absorb light. Korean. Clearly wealthy. Clearly important. And clearly furious. But not at her. At Madison. You have exactly 5 seconds, he said, his voice low and dangerous, to apologize. Madison's smugness faltered. Excuse me. 4. Do you even know who I? 3. Madison Whitmore. Sister of Derek Whitmore III. Daughter of Senator Richard Whitmore, currently under federal investigation for campaign finance violations and what was it? Several credible allegations of sexual misconduct that got conveniently buried. The stranger smiled, and it was terrifying. 2. Madison's face went white. How do you? 1. He pulled out his phone. Your father's hearing is in 3 months. Imagine how his defense team would feel about a viral video of his daughter assaulting a single mother. The optics alone. This isn't assault. It was an accident. Cameras don't lie. He nodded toward the corner of the coffee shop, where a security camera blinked red. Neither do witnesses. You have approximately 15 students here who just watched you deliberately pour hot coffee on a woman who did nothing to provoke you. That's battery in the state of Illinois. Misdemeanor, 6 months jail time, $2,500 fine. His thumb hovered over his phone. But the real punishment would be social. Don't you think? Headline: Senator's daughter attacks black college student. Single mother. The narrative writes itself. Madison was shaking now. Who are you? Someone who doesn't appreciate bullies. He pocketed his phone. Now, apologize. And make it convincing. The coffee shop had become a theater. Every eye was fixed on the scene unfolding. Madison's clones had backed away, distancing themselves from the potential scandal. Madison swallowed hard. Her voice came out strangled. I'm sorry. For the coffee. It was wrong. The stranger didn't blink. Look at her when you say it. Madison's eyes finally met Lillian's. There were tears building, probably the first genuine emotion she'd displayed in years. I'm sorry, Lillian. It was wrong. I was wrong. And it won't happen again. Leave. Madison fled. Her clones scattered like roaches in light. The coffee shop remained silent for another beat. Then, slowly, the world resumed. Chatter. Clinking cups. The hiss of the espresso machine. But Lillian couldn't move. The stranger turned to her fully now, and without the mask of cold fury, his expression shifted into something she couldn't name. Tenderness? Reverence? Recognition? Here. He pulled a silk handkerchief from his pocket, who still carried those, and gently dabbed at her face. The touch was impossibly gentle for hands that looked capable of breaking things. Are you all right? Who are you? She whispered. Owen Kim. The name meant nothing to her. Should it? You don't remember me, he continued, and there was a flicker of something in his voice. Disappointment, maybe. Or acceptance. There's no reason you would. Have we met? Once. 3 years ago. A bus stop in the rain. He tucked the handkerchief into her trembling hand. You were pregnant. Alone. Soaked. And I gave you an umbrella. Lillian's breath caught. The umbrella. She still had it. It sat in her closet, and used but never discarded, because it had been the only kindness she'd received during the darkest period of her life. That was you. Yes. Why? How are you here? Because I've been looking for you, Lillian Marie Hayes. For 3 very long years. His dark eyes held hers, unwavering. I need you to understand something. What just happened, what that woman did to you, will never happen again. Not while I'm alive. I don't understand. You will. But first, he glanced at the clock on the wall. You have a pharmaceutical chemistry exam in 20 minutes, and you're covered in coffee. How do you know my exam schedule? Owen Kim smiled, and it transformed his face from intimidating to devastating. I know everything about you, Lillian. Your grades. Your jobs. Your son. Your favorite midnight snack is graham crackers with Nutella, and you watch true crime documentaries while folding laundry because you refuse to waste any time that could be multitasked. Lillian's mouth fell open. That's incredibly creepy. I prefer thorough. I don't even know you. Not yet. He stepped back, giving her space. But I'd like to change that. If you'll let me. Why? Why any of this? Why me? Owen Kim was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was stripped of pretense, raw, honest, almost vulnerable. Because 3 years ago, a woman stood in the rain, 6 months pregnant, with nothing but wet textbooks and a defiant expression, and when I offered her an umbrella, she refused to take charity from a stranger. She made me work for her trust. Made me prove I wasn't a threat. He paused. In 30 seconds, she showed more strength than anyone I've ever met. And I've met presidents, kings, and CEOs who crumble at the first sign of pressure. Lillian's heart was doing something dangerous. Something she'd sworn off 3 years ago. Don't feel. Don't hope. Don't trust. That's insane, she whispered. Probably. Owen shrugged. But I've built a pharmaceutical empire on insane bets. And you, Lillian Hayes, are the only gamble I've ever truly wanted. Lillian aced her exam. She didn't know how. Her brain had been replaying the coffee shop encounter on loop, Owen's voice, his intensity, the way he looked at her like she was the solution to an equation he'd been solving forever. Afterward, she found a sleek black envelope waiting on her apartment doorstep. Inside, a single card. Dinner. 7 p.m. Address below. Your neighbor Mrs. Patterson has been generously compensated to watch Miles until midnight. There's a dress in the package. Wear it if you choose. Or don't. I simply want your company. Owen. Lillian stared at the package she'd apparently missed. A white box with no branding, placed neatly beside her door. Inside was a dress. Sapphire blue. Elegant, but not ostentatious. The fabric felt like water against her fingers, probably some designer silk blend she couldn't pronounce. There was also a pair of heels, her exact size, a clutch, with $500 cash inside and a note that read "Cab fare if I bore you," and a jewelry box containing simple pearl earrings. Lillian sat on her couch for 20 minutes, holding the dress and questioning every life choice that led her here. I should throw this away. I should call the police. I should absolutely not go to dinner with a stranger who knows my social security number. But she'd been surviving for so long. Scraping by on nothing, smiling through exhaustion, pretending she didn't notice the way people looked at her, like she was a mistake walking around on borrowed time. And Owen Kim had looked at her like she was the sun. One dinner. If he's a serial killer, at least I'll die wearing something nice. The restaurant didn't have a name on the door. Just an address in the West Loop and a hostess who took one look at Lillian and smiled like she'd been expecting her. Miss Hayes? Right this way. The interior was intimate. Candlelit. Maybe 12 tables total, none of them occupied except one in the far corner. Owen stood when he saw her. He'd changed into a dark suit, no tie, collar open. His hair was slightly tousled, like he'd been running his fingers through it nervously. Nervous. About me? You came, he said, and there was genuine relief in his voice. I'm here to establish boundaries, Lillian replied, sliding into her seat. You know my exam schedule, my son's name, and my snacking habits. That's a lot. Fair. Owen sat across from her. Ask me anything. I'll answer honestly. Are you dangerous? To you? Never. To people who hurt you. He smiled slightly. Extremely. Why the obsession with me? I don't consider it an obsession. You hired private investigators. I hired efficient researchers. You enrolled in executive classes at my university. Continuing education is important. You're deflecting. Owen leaned back, studying her with those dark eyes. You want the truth? I don't fully understand it myself. I've dated models, heiresses, women who tick every logical box. None of them made me feel anything. And then there was you, a pregnant stranger at a bus stop who refused my help until I proved myself worthy, and suddenly I felt everything. Lillian's breath caught. That's insane. You keep saying that. Because it is. Maybe. He signaled the waiter. But tell me honestly, Lillian. When's the last time someone saw you? Not the single mother. Not the scholarship student. Not the tragedy. You. The question hit harder than it should have. When's the last time? She couldn't answer. Because the answer was never. Derek saw a conquest. Her mother saw a caretaker. Her professors saw a statistic. The world saw a cautionary tale. Nobody saw her. I see you, Owen continued quietly. I see the woman who dropped out of Northwestern rather than terminate a pregnancy because someone told her she wasn't worthy of motherhood. I see the woman who buried her mother alone because no one else came. I see the woman who works 60 hours a week and still maintains a 4.0 GPA because failure is not an option. Lillian's eyes stung. Stop. I see you, Lillian. And I'm not going anywhere. The dinner lasted 4 hours. They talked about everything, her studies, his company, her dreams, his fears. Owen spoke about his grandmother in Seoul, who called him weekly to nag about marriage. His best friend Daniel, who acted as his moral compass when profit margins got tempting. His parents, who died when he was 12, leaving him to be raised by said grandmother and a series of cold nannies. Lillian spoke about Miles, his first words, no and more, very on brand, his obsession with dinosaurs, his laugh that sounded like tiny bells. She talked about her mother's death, how she'd held Patricia's hand in that hospital room and promised to make something of herself. I'm going to develop affordable insulin, Lillian said, swirling her wine. That's the plan. Finish my degree, get into pharmaceutical research, and make sure no family ever has to ration medication because some corporation decided their profit margins mattered more than human lives. Owen stared at her. What? She frowned. Too idealistic? I run a pharmaceutical company. I know. I Googled you. And you're still sitting here, telling me you want to disrupt my entire industry. Are you offended? Owen laughed, a real laugh, full and warm. I'm fascinated. Most people sugarcoat things when they find out what I do. They want investments, partnerships, favors. You just declared war on my business model. Is that a problem? It's the sexiest thing anyone's ever said to me. Lillian choked on her wine. By midnight, she realized she was in trouble. Not because Owen was dangerous, though he clearly was, in a white-collar criminal kind of way, but because she liked him. Genuinely liked him. His dry humor, his intensity, the way he listened like every word she spoke was precious. Don't fall for this. Don't be stupid again. But when he walked her to the cab waiting outside, and he took her hand, and he pressed his lips to her knuckles like she was royalty. Too late. Can I see you again? He asked. This is still insane. I know. You're basically a stalker. A well-intentioned one. I have a child. Baggage. Debt. An entire life that doesn't fit into your CEO world. I'm not asking you to fit. I'm asking you to let me into your world. Whatever that looks like. Lillian studied him, searching for the cracks, the lies, the inevitable betrayal. She found nothing but sincerity. Saturday, she said finally. Miles has a play date until noon. I can do brunch. Owen's smile could have powered a small city. Brunch, he agreed. I'll be there. Owen Kim did not do anything by halves. By the third week, Lillian's life had transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined. First, the apartment. I'm not moving, she'd said flatly when Owen suggested it. I'm not asking you to move. I'm asking you to let me fix the heating. The landlord will fix it. The landlord has ignored your maintenance requests for 6 months. I have it documented. You have my maintenance requests documented? I have everything documented. He didn't move her. He bought the building. 2 weeks later, Lillian had a brand new HVAC system, a repainted apartment, and rent that mysteriously dropped to $1 per month due to administrative error. You're impossible, she told him. I'm efficient. Then came the car. Her ancient Honda Civic died in the university parking lot, something it did bi-weekly, and when Lillian called Owen to vent, they talked every day now, texted every hour. He simply said, handled. The next morning, a Tesla Model Y was parked outside her building. Owen. It's a safety issue, Lillian. That car has been recalled twice. You're driving miles around in a vehicular death trap. I cannot accept a Tesla. Then consider it a long-term loan. For the child. You're using my son to manipulate me. Is it working? It was working. Then there was Mrs. Patterson. The elderly neighbor who watched Miles charged almost nothing because she adored him and considered Lillian like a daughter. Owen hired her officially with benefits, a salary, and a generous retirement contribution. She's 68, Owen explained. She deserves financial security. You're paying my babysitter $60,000 a year. She's providing full-time childcare for he stopped. Lillian raised an eyebrow. You're what? Owen's ears went pink. Actually pink. This terrifying CEO, blushing like a teenager. I was going to say my future stepson, he admitted. But that presumes a lot. It presumes marriage. Eventually. Yes. Lillian's heart stopped. Then started again at triple speed. Owen. We've been dating for 3 weeks. I know what I want. You want to marry me? I want everything with you, Lillian. Marriage. Partnership. More children if you're willing. A life where you never have to work 3 jobs again. A life where Miles grows up knowing his mother is valued, protected, adored. We barely know each other. Then let me know you. Let me learn every part of you, the good, the broken, the brilliant. I'm not asking for a wedding next month. I'm asking for a chance to prove myself. Day by day. Year by year. However long it takes. Lillian was crying. She didn't know when the tears had started. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? Of trusting again. Of being wrong again. Of Miles getting attached to someone who might leave. Owen moved closer. Cupped her face in his hands. Wiped her tears with his thumbs. I will never leave, he said. Not because of obligation or guilt. Because leaving you would be leaving myself. You've become my heartbeat, Lillian. And I don't say that lightly. This is terrifying. I know. I might break your heart. I doubt it. I'm difficult. Independent. I don't know how to let someone take care of me. Then I'll teach you. Slowly. Patiently. For however long it takes. Lillian looked at this man, this impossible, relentless, terrifyingly sincere man, and made a decision. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Let's try. But slowly. And if you hurt Miles, I will destroy you. Owen's smile was radiant. I'd expect nothing less. Happiness, Lillian was learning, made people uncomfortable. Especially when that happiness came from unexpected places. The campus buzzed with rumors. Who was the Korean billionaire picking up Lillian Hayes in a chauffeured car? Why did she suddenly dress better, smile more, glow like something beautiful was happening inside her? Madison Whitmore, predictably, couldn't let it go. She's obviously a gold digger, Madison told anyone who would listen. Trapped my brother with a pregnancy, and now she's found an even bigger fish. The whispers followed Lillian through hallways. Through study sessions. Through the coffee shop where Owen had first saved her. She tried to ignore them. But then Derek got involved. Lillian Hayes. She was leaving the engineering building, texting Owen about dinner plans, when the voice froze her blood. Derek Whitmore 3. 3 years older, somehow more arrogant. Derek. Her voice was ice. I heard about your new boyfriend. He stepped closer, blocking her path. Korean pharmaceutical CEO. Very impressive. Though I have to wonder, does he know about your history? My history is none of his business. Oh, but it might be. Especially if someone were to share certain details. About the stalking accusations. The mental health concerns. The desperation that led you to trap an innocent college student with a baby. None of that is true, and you know it. Truth is malleable, Lillian. Especially when money is involved. Derek's smile was reptilian. Here's the thing. My family doesn't appreciate complications. And you, with your new connections, your new confidence, are becoming a complication. My father's hearing is coming up. The last thing we need is media attention on our family drama. I'm not going to media. No. But your billionaire boyfriend might. He seems protective. Derek's eyes narrowed. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to end things with Owen Kim. You're going to disappear back into obscurity. And you're going to sign an NDA stating you'll never discuss our relationship publicly. And if I refuse? Then I'll destroy you. Derek leaned closer, his breath hot against her ear. I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, journalists, private investigators. I will drag your name through every court in this country. I will make sure no pharmaceutical company ever hires you. And I will fight for custody of the child, just to prove I can. Lillian's blood ran cold. You don't want Miles. Of course not. But the fight alone would devastate you. Legal fees. Trauma. Watching your son caught in the middle of a battle you can't win. Derek straightened, smoothing his jacket. Think about it, Lillian. 24 hours. He walked away. Lillian stood frozen for a full minute, her body trembling with terror and rage. Then she called Owen. He's bluffing, Owen said flatly. They were in his penthouse office, a space Lillian had never seen, all glass and steel and views of the Chicago skyline. Owen sat behind his desk, and for the first time, Lillian saw the CEO. Not the tender man who held her while she cried. The predator. He has resources, she started. His father is under federal investigation. His family's assets are frozen pending the outcome. The Whitmores are hemorrhaging money on legal fees, and their political connections are abandoning ship because no one wants to be associated with a sinking dynasty. Owen's jaw tightened. Derek Whitmore is a cornered animal. And cornered animals are dangerous, but also desperate. He threatened custody. On what grounds? He's never met Miles. He's never paid a dime of child support. There's no existing custody agreement, and he explicitly asked you to terminate the pregnancy. Owen's voice hardened. I have that documented, by the way. Your original text messages. His payments for the procedure that you never used. Lillian stared. How do you have those? I told you. I have everything. Owen, that's insurance. For exactly this moment. He stood, moving around the desk to take her hands. Lillian. Look at me. She looked. I will not let Derek Whitmore touch you or Miles. Not legally. Not emotionally. Not in any way. But I need your permission to act. What do you mean? I mean I have information on the Whitmore family that could end them. Permanently. Financial crimes. Cover-ups. Even. He paused, something dark flickering in his eyes. Let's just say Derek's tastes haven't improved since college. There are women who would testify. Lillian felt sick. Other women Yes. Several. None as strong as you. Most took the settlements and disappeared. Owen's grip on her hands tightened. I can make this stop. Today. But it would mean going public. It would mean attention on you, on Miles, on our relationship. Media scrutiny. Social judgment. It wouldn't be painless. What's the alternative? We handle it quietly. I have the Whitmore legal team outgunned. Their bluster is exactly that bluster. Derek won't actually sue for custody because it would require revealing his own behavior, which would devastate what's left of his political future. Owen's voice gentled. We wait him out. Let his family's implosion do the work. In 6 months, Senator Whitmore will be convicted, the assets will be liquidated, and Derek will be too busy saving himself to care about you. Lillian exhaled slowly. And if he doesn't wait? If he tries something before then? Owen's eyes went cold. Predator cold. Then I won't be quiet. And when I'm done, the Whitmore name won't be remembered for politics. It'll be remembered as a cautionary tale. Lillian should have been afraid. This man, this powerful, relentless man, was offering to destroy an entire family for her. Instead, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Quietly, she decided. For now. But if he comes near Miles, I'll handle it. Promise me. Owen pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in his universe. I promise, Lillian. No one will ever hurt you again. Owen was right. The Whitmores imploded on their own. Within 3 months, Senator Richard Whitmore was convicted on 7 counts of campaign finance violations and 3 counts of obstruction of justice. His sentence: 12 years federal prison. The family's assets were seized. The estate auctioned. The society connections vanished like smoke. Madison dropped out of UIC, humiliated and broke, fleeing to some obscure European country where no one knew her name. And Derek? Derek's fiancée Clarissa Vanderbilt called off the engagement when certain information about his college years surfaced during the trial. Not in court, just conveniently leaked to the right journalists. Lillian never asked if Owen was responsible. She didn't need to. The last she heard, Derek was working at a mid-level finance firm in Delaware, disgraced and forgotten. Poetic justice, she thought. For all of us. 1 year later, Lillian graduated summa cum laude from the University of Illinois Chicago's biomedical engineering program. Miles, now 3.5, sat in the front row with Owen and Mrs. Patterson, wearing a tiny suit and waving a sign that read, "Go Mommy." She cried through the entire ceremony. Afterward, Owen took them to the lakefront, a private section of beach he'd somehow secured for the evening. There were fairy lights strung through the trees, a violinist playing softly nearby, and a blanket spread with champagne and strawberries. Miles was immediately distracted by the sand. Owen led Lillian to the water's edge, where the sunset painted the sky in streaks of gold and rose. 1 year ago, he said, you agreed to give me a chance. To let me prove myself day by day. I remember. Have I? Proven myself? Lillian smiled. You've exceeded every expectation. Then I have one more thing to ask. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. I know, he said slowly. I know you have every reason to be cautious. But Lillian Marie Hayes, I have loved you from a rain-soaked bus stop, through coffee shop confrontations and billionaire stalking and family destruction. I will love you through graduate school and residencies and whatever comes next. I want to adopt Miles. I want to give you more children if you want them. I want to spend every morning watching you curse at your alarm clock and every evening listening to you explain pharmaceutical chemistry like it's poetry. He opened the box. The ring was stunning, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. It matched the dress from their first dinner. Will you marry me? Lillian's tears fell freely now. Happy tears. Finally happy tears. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, yes. Owen slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her soft and deep and full of promise. Behind them, Miles squealed with delight, having no idea what was happening, but sensing the joy. And Lillian Hayes, once invisible, once mocked, once broken, realized she had finally found her home. Not in a place. In a person. 5 years later. Dr. Lillian Hayes Kim stood at the podium, facing a crowd of reporters, researchers, and pharmaceutical executives. Today, she announced, Kim Pharmaceuticals is launching the Hayes Initiative, a program dedicated to making insulin affordable for every American. We're committing $500 million over the next decade to subsidize production costs and eliminate price gouging. No family should ever have to choose between medication and food. Applause thundered through the auditorium. In the front row, Owen watched his wife with unmistakable pride. Beside him sat Miles, now 8 years old, sharp as a tack and absolutely obsessed with becoming a doctor like Mommy. And on Owen's other side, in a tiny rose gold dress, sat their daughter, Patricia Grace Kim, named after the grandmother she'd never meet but whose spirit lived on in everything Lillian built. Later that night, after the galas and the interviews and the chaos had settled, Lillian found Owen on their penthouse balcony, staring at the Chicago skyline. Regrets? She asked, sliding her arms around him. Never. He turned to face her, pulling her close. You. Lillian thought about the coffee shop, the bus stop, the rain. All the moments of pain that led to this life she'd never dared to dream. Not a single one, she whispered. Owen kissed her forehead. I told you, Lillian. From the moment I saw you, I knew. Knew what? That you were the answer to every question I'd ever asked. His voice dropped, intimate and reverent. You're not invisible. You never were. You're the most radiant thing in any room. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know it. Lillian Hayes Kim, doctor, philanthropist, mother, wife, smiled against his chest. She finally believed him. And that's the story. If this journey had you feeling all the emotions, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next upload. We have so many more stories coming, dramatic, heartwarming, full of twists you won't see coming. Drop a comment below telling us what you thought of Owen and Lillian's story. Did Owen cross the line with his research, or was it romantic? Let us know. And share this video with someone who loves a good love story. Until next time, we'll see you in the next one.